Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 17. I've got Andrew Schmitz with me today. He is the CEO and co-founder of Proceed. When he was in high school, his friend's dad changed his mindset on wealth, and it changed his life forever. If you asked Andrew, he would tell you, if it were easy, everyone would do it. So start. And we're going to get started in just a moment. Hold tight. All right, so I am sitting with the Andrew Schmitz at Copper State Brewing Company. He's got a fantastic last name, in case any of you were wondering.
TZ.
TZ, yeah. It's like you don't... I think I traced it back once. It's a particular point of the Netherlands, right on the border of Germany. But I think it's not just the Netherlands, but it could be Germany too, and it's amazing. So anyway, I get excited when I find someone else.
Yeah, no, that's neat. I didn't know that, so thank you.
Yeah. But have you always thought you were German or Dutch or?
German is what my understanding is from the family.
And
so.
maybe you are. So Andrew, thank you so much for being on, man.
Yeah, super excited to be here today, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were just chatting off air and kind of getting to know each other better because it's the first time that we've sat down, and it's just exciting. And so I think that's something maybe that our listeners maybe they're aware of, maybe they don't. It's these conversations are likely just as new for me as they are for people that are listening, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's intentional. Like it's just fun. The whole concept is just, hey, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee, let's have a beer, let's have a cigar, and hear your story, and allow me to pick your brain and pass on that information, your story, your successes, your failures, your advice to the world, and
love it. Yeah.
It's awesome. So
love meeting new people too. So it's perfect.
Yeah. So and people might not know anything about you, Andrew. So you own a company called Proceed. You started founder, right?
Co-founder, yeah.
Right? And so that's super exciting. But there's more to you than just that side of things, right?
Yeah.
So maybe kind of sketch out for our listeners just a bit about who you are, what you love to do, and where you hail from. I don't know, kind of just the normal business.
For sure. Well, I'm from
are you?
Yeah, from the Appleton area. Been there pretty much my whole life. Lived with my family. I have 3 siblings.
Which high school did you go to?
I went to Xavier High School, also Appleton North. So moved from North to Xavier. I've been a theater guy, so I was involved in fine arts really heavily.
Theater?
That was, performing arts, that kind of stuff.
Tenor?
I was a tenor, but I did more technical, so behind the scenes kind of stuff through high school. Had a really good time with that, and a lot of awesome lessons that you get through being in the arts.
Oh, for sure.
And whatnot. So that's kind of like my sport. So I did that full time in high school.
Do you have a favorite production that you were part of that you recall?
Oh gosh. Well, my senior year we did Shrek the Musical, which was a lot of fun.
Interesting.
But since then, I used to do a lot of shows. I don't do as much theater as I used to, but Shrek the Musical it's a great show, great message, a lot of fun technical elements, and music and all that. So
that's so cool. Do you have any old videos of you floating around doing your thing?
Yeah, there's definitely old videos on the YouTube and all
Purposely
that.
Buried.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff though. Awesome. It's good memories to have. And,
for sure.
And digital media lets you do that. So, so I went to high school in Appleton. I started my first company. Became an entrepreneur actually when I was in middle school. I started a DJing company.
Cool.
Did that. Didn't have to get a high school job because I was busy doing that, and decided I didn't want to be a DJ. So quickly got out of that right around the end of high school, but continued. I went took a year off of education, kind of traveled around a little bit, tested the water. Worked for a startup hospital out in Kenya, in Africa for a while, which was a great experience. Then came back, decided to go to college, dropped out of college, for a couple of reasons. I found out it wasn't for me, but then the company that I was working for was looking for a full-time project manager. They offered me the job, and so I just was like, well, okay, well, this is perfect. I can go get educated while working for a business, which is really what I wanted. So while working for that company, I started my side hustle. I loved what I was doing at that. It was a technology company in the Appleton area. Loved what I was doing there, but just always knew I wanted to work for myself someday and, kind of stir my own success. So I started a side hustle. I was helping small businesses with process documentation and building training materials. So every client that I would have, I'd approach them and say, hey, what kind of training do you need, or how can I help you basically with training your humans? And it would be from things like training videos to training websites, to training documents or PDF, binders, whatever it was, employee handbooks, whatever the deliverable was, we would draft that up, and then I would come in and deliver it. Through that, started that 3.5 years ago. Really liked it. I loved working with small businesses. I dabbled in larger businesses and didn't love it as much. But observed a few key things about working with small businesses that kind of led me to where I am today. First thing was, as a consultant, I would go into these businesses and I would have to charge them, for my time and for the tools that I needed to be able to do my work. And for a lot of small businesses, really small businesses, say like coffee shops or local restaurants and stuff like that, they couldn't necessarily, not all of them, make sense of my services, right, or my fee structure. So I didn't love that about it. The other thing I didn't like about it is that it wasn't scalable. If I was going to scale this, I'd have to find another person to do the work that I was doing, and didn't like that dependence on hiring rock stars to be able to do this work. And then the other observation I made was that there's a lot of skepticism, especially when you go into a small business that has rockstar employees that they've been relying on for so long. As soon as you go in there with a camera and you start documenting all the knowledge and know-how that they have, it turns out the employees don't really like that, or a lot of the employees didn't really care for that. I got a lot of different messaging, but some of it was how you're coming in here for a day and you're going to document everything that I know from the last 30 years. Come on, you're crazy. You're going to be back here in 2 weeks and you're going to be charging us, over and over again, and they had some messaging was, you're just documenting this stuff so they can fire me and, hire someone, cheaper and younger to take over. So with these observations, I realized what I was doing wasn't, I recognized that small businesses really needed this kind of work, but there were, these obstacles in the way that just prevented me from going in and doing consulting work for them to help them with these obstacles. So from that, I developed the concept for Proceed about 2 years ago. I built a prototype for Proceed using Snapchat. So basically the concept was, I can make this private Snapchat account. I can put it on employee, the businesses, the business that I was helping, their employees' phones, show them how to make a Snap story, and then at the end of the day, I could download the Snap story, upload it to a website that was private for that company, and then ship it to their employees for training and repetitive learning. So I did that for a couple of my clients, and turns out they really loved it. The employees liked the idea that they were contributing to their legacy, and that they were, documenting this important knowledge that the business depends on, and that they were, at the core of it. And it was also just, it was cool because I didn't have to be there to do it, you know.
Yeah.
But of course,
More
it was
scalable.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, it was Snapchat, so like, you know, there was no hiding that. It was the little ghost guy on the icon. So that's kind of where the idea for Proceed came, though, was using, you know, technology that was already available to me, kind of piecing things together and deciding like, hey, well, actually, maybe there's a market here.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I tested a few key assumptions that way on the product. And then in March of 2019, I basically was, after testing the Snapchat method with a few clients, I, you know, sat down and reflected on a few metrics in my life and said, you know, what am I going to do with this, right? Am I going to, you know, I can't continue doing the Snapchat thing. Like, obviously, it worked for like clients that I was really close with and had a good relationship with. But if I were to approach a new client, like, I don't know how they would feel about, like, you know, and I can't scale that too big. So I you know, sat down, measured a few things in my life, and decided like, okay, well, I need to take the next step on this. So in March, I quit my job. Then full-time on Proceed since then. I spent from March to May finding a team, launched the business in May with 2 other co-founders, and we just rolled out to our early adopters about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So in January of 2020 here, and we're full steam ahead, moving along. Yeah.
That's so awesome, man. But you never graduated college. You dropped out.
Yeah, you know, I used to joke around like, yeah, I'm a college dropout, you know, and it didn't really feel that way like when I did it. To me, it felt like more, you know, I was offered a salary that I thought I could achieve, you know, like that I thought I would achieve after getting a bachelor's degree. So I looked at that and I was like, well, you know, what's the point of this? And honestly, the opportunity just felt right. I wasn't happy in college. I really just wanted to, you know, be in business just learn through being in business. So.
Now, you probably had a lot of folks along the way, you know, dismiss you because you didn't have a college education.
No, actually not. Like, and that was actually one of the, like, later while reflecting, you know, I've been in a lot of meetings with either with my own idea that I'm trying to pitch to a group of people, or while working, you know, for a technology company where I'm selling, you know, whatever it was, or talking with them about product research. And never once has someone been like, hey, you know, what kind of credential do you have to sit here today?
Where's your resume?
Show me your resume before you enter. Yeah, what was that? No, nothing like that. So, you know, I'm definitely not against getting educated or anything like that. I think, matter of fact, I worked in education for a while and actually worked at a local college and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I think it's a really good thing. It just has to be right. It has to be part of your vision, right?
Yeah.
And that was for me. What I realized is, like, I didn't have a vivid vision for where I was going with this college degree, and so I was just wasting my own time and money, really.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, just good stuff. If, you know, folks are listening to this and you're wrestling with, you know, maybe you're younger, maybe you're thinking about, or maybe you're a little bit older, maybe you're thinking about going back to school because you never finished. It's not so much about, you know, I think education is so important, and there's more than one way to get it. And
for sure.
And what we're distilling from your experience here is opportunity cost. You know, like you had, you know, you could have gone and stayed throughout school and been paying someone else to give you an education of how to do something, but not really modeling or exemplifying that for you. In the meantime, you had another path to get educated, but to be paid to get educated, to be shaped and molded in real, you know, and that's the thing. It's that you were really iterating, right? But in your life journey, and you're using the tools on hand to do that, you know, a la Snapchat, right? I mean, it's a really cool thing to where education
doesn't always have to come in a college diploma, right? It doesn't have to be in that. It could be a really good fit for somebody.
It doesn't have to be formal. It can be very informal.
So even with that, so then I'm curious, like, a lot of the concepts that you're sharing, kind of talking about, are those things that you glean in retrospect, or like what was your process of learning? Can you kind of unpack, like, I guess your mindset and then like your experience and how you learned and how you got to be where you are today? Did you have someone that was like kind of coaching you or mentoring you, or were you reading books or listening to podcasts, or like what was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge podcast listener, so I'm really excited to be on your podcast.
We can do multiple episodes.
But yeah, so podcasts have been a huge helper for me, especially I would consider like our area, especially down in Appleton, to be like a developing entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? And the best advice that I've gotten for my own businesses, but even while working for someone else, has been through talking with other entrepreneurs or business owners and hearing what they have done wrong or what they have done right, and getting the insight and knowledge from them, which is awesome. With podcasting, you can get people's knowledge bits from all over the country and the world, right? Like you don't have to be sitting down for coffee to get it. You can put it on in your car and drive. So podcasts for me have been huge, but also I have some really strong mentors in my life. My father's been a small business owner his whole life, and a carpenter, so a builder, who I've gotten a lot of great lessons from. There's a handful of great business leaders and mentors that I've had that have made an impact in my life, including the awesome CEO that did hire me when I dropped out of college and gave me a shot, which I'm very grateful for.
That's so awesome. And then you made the most of it, which is huge. I think that's one of the coolest things, like especially in our day and age, how technology has decentralized everything. Like that, we have the access, to learn about pretty much anything we want to in our pockets. Right. And so I hope, for those of you guys who are listening, I hope your story, Andrew, is really encouraging to folks that might feel stuck in college, like what am I doing here, right? And I'd rather be doing this, or again, if they're struggling with like wanting to go back. College can be a really, really good thing, and then taking it in that formal sense.
For sure.
There are other ways, and if it doesn't align with your ultimate vision, and like once you get clear on what you want in life and what you're going for, if college is aligned, there's other ways to learn what you need to know and to leverage that in the world in service to others that will yield economic results for you, right? And that's a good path to take.
For sure. I think the biggest thing that's helped me, kind of method that I've subscribed to, is all of the business ventures or ideas that I've sat down and developed a really vivid vision for where I'm going. Those have been the ones that have succeeded. The ones where I don't have a vivid vision, or even just things in life where I don't sit down and really think in full detail, like, where do I want this to go, or what is my next step? What are the next 5 steps, whatever it is. Those things have always failed me, or I've left them very not satisfied. And that honestly is with college for me. I didn't sit down and I didn't have a vivid vision for where I was going to go with college and how I was going to use college as a vehicle to bring me to the next level, and that is probably why I wasn't successful. So I'll blame myself for that as well. But things worked out, and I learned from that as well. That no regrets at all. I mean, I've had a awesome ride so far.
Can you imagine where you would have been had you turned down the project management job and stayed in college?
For sure. I don't know where I'd be.
Right, exactly. So I wouldn't even look at that as like a failure by any means. I think you had a good head on your shoulders at the time, and you had 2 options, and you chose the better one. For sure. There could be, at the time, there could have been more perceived risk with that, but in a sense there wasn't. You're getting paid to learn versus paying to learn. And you had, going to the project manager role, at least gave you a little bit, maybe aligned more with that vision of where you maybe wanted to be long-term in life.
Well, definitely,
And then you couldn't make sense of the college piece, so then it kind of became a no-brainer as far as which path you would take. And so I think that's awesome, man. I think I think more people could stand to take a clear look at that. And again, that's no knock on college. They're just saying it doesn't have to be only college. It doesn't have to be only this way. You know, consider the options at hand, considering what you have around you, and it's just amazing what people can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
All right, man. So take us a little bit behind the scenes into why. Why do you do what you do? You know, so maybe for you, like, what is that clear vision, and how does it relate to Proceed, and like, what's that greater purpose or vision behind why you're doing what you're doing that keeps you waking up and wanting to see through Proceed to ultimate success, whatever that means.
Yeah, so Proceed, I should probably say what our mission is with Proceed. We're helping small businesses or small teams use visuals in their knowledge sharing. So a couple things to unpack about that. Small teams and small businesses, at least, and this is a very general statement, so definitely not every small team and every small business. But a lot of them have a hard time with efficient knowledge management or knowledge sharing. And that's something I realized, back when I got started with consulting with these businesses is like, the reason why you have a hard time onboarding employees is because you have no clarity in how you onboard employees. And the training that you offer them is not great, to say the least. And so, I dug into why don't you have great training, and why are people choosing, or why do employees have a better onboarding experience at maybe a larger company than at your company? And so I realized that sure, there's a lot of tools out there that small business owners can use and small business managers can use to develop training, but something that they kept coming back to me as a consultant is because I used a lot of visuals in my documents and in my deliverables that I was giving them. And so I realized very quickly, as a visual learner, and 60% of us are visual learners, that visuals are one of the best ways to receive information, and also the highest bandwidth way for humans to receive information. Until they build some helmet that you can put on and zap knowledge from artificial intelligence machines and all this kind of stuff into your brain, visuals are, in my opinion, and I've yet to see something different, the best and the fastest way to receive information. So what our mission is, and why we do what we do is, we think that when you can use short videos or images, screenshots, these kind of things in your training materials, you will have not only more efficient training, but your employees will feel like they know what they're doing, with higher accuracy and more confidence, which not only makes them feel better as I'm doing my job right, but they feel more secure in their job, and they feel like they actually know what they're doing. So our why I wake up every day and go to the office and work with the team on developing our product, and also work with our early adopters to see how we can make our product better, is because we want small businesses and small teams to be competitive. Large companies, they have lots of, they have knowledge loss prevention teams. They have, HR onboarding, people that focus on making the onboarding experience pleasant and efficient. For small businesses, they just don't have that luxury. And so we're trying to, make it easier to get into the digital ecosystem, using really amazing, strong visuals, to their advantage, and so that they can stay competitive with knowledge management. Which is kind of interesting. A lot of people don't think about knowledge management as a way of staying competitive, but it really is. It's when you can train people faster, or maybe even on demand, instead of as they receive the knowledge as they need it. When you can streamline it that or make it that efficient, it is a competitive thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you're really, in a sense, jealous for the cultivation of human capital within companies. So not only that they experience success, but so they stick around, right?
Yeah.
So that you're playing in that gap between the sole proprietor, or maybe you'd appeal to the sole proprietor, but if it's just a one-person company, then there might not be the same kind of perceived benefit as if the team were 5 or 10 or 50 or 100, and then over against. How do you compete against some of the bigger fish in the pond, which is not your playing space? Like, they've got learning management systems and all that kind of stuff, and you're saying, hey, what's something that's really accessible, flexible here to continue to develop that human capital within the organization? Why? Because we really care about the success long term, and then even think about how that can be passed down from the original founder of that small business to is the son going to take over? Is another employee going to take over? And how can this perpetuate the legacy here? It seems kind of like that you're really getting at that idea, is helping to sustain legacies by cultivating the human capital and then also the intellectual capital within that organization. Does that make sense?
I mean, we've discovered a lot of really cool things about how people use our technology, and it's different depending on the business and the business needs, but one of it is, definitely succession planning, right? Like, how do you take the knowledge that the people who've been here for 30 years and transfer it to the incoming workforce in a way that the incoming workforce prefers to receive information through visuals, through their phones, tablets, technology, whatever it is. But then also, so that's succession planning, which is really a lot of manufacturing clients that we have are using it for that. They've had these rock star employees that are, 60% of the workforce is up for retirement in the next 10 years. So, that's massive turnover, right? And you need a good way of packaging up the knowledge that they have and letting them share their legacy with the incoming workforce. But then, you also have like food service, like Panera released a report last year or something that 150% turnover in their restaurants. So they have a lot of food service compliance, issues that they have to take care of, and with basically a revolving door for employees, like how do you rapidly train these people and make sure that they're getting the training from the top instead of secondhand training, right? Kind of like the telephone game. By the time the message gets to the last employee, are they doing it the right way? It's depending on the needs of, or what the nature of the business and what they need. But the other thing, you mentioned a sole proprietor. Well, we're talking to a couple of our early adopters that are like 1 or 2 person businesses, but they have big vision, their vision is to scale. How can you delegate to, new team members and get the, when you bring on someone and you're starting to scale and step on the gas, how can you make sure that they have the knowledge that they need to succeed in your business? So it's kind of interesting. I mean, we have companies all across the board, but the main thing that ties them together is that they're what we would consider small teams.
Yeah, I love it, man. There's so for my own studies, for a while I dug into ultra wealthy families, right? And when you have this kind of generational wealth, and you probably heard this before, where the first generation creates the wealth, the second generation manages the wealth, and the third generation squanders the wealth. Right? It's all gone. Right? And one of the biggest issues in that is that the succeeding generations weren't taught how to create wealth. Right? And they weren't taught, in a sense, how to manage it. You could see the gaps there. So if every generation was not taught, not only taught how to create the wealth, but to manage it, you could perpetuate that legacy, right?
For sure.
In that study, I uncovered, I think the guy might be, I think his name is James Hughes. Just want to give credit where credit's due. He talks about, in these families, you really have three different forms of capital when you're considering ultra wealthy families. The first is human capital. The second is intellectual capital. And the third is financial capital. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how, what you see in this, why after 3 generations it's all gone. It's because the human capital wasn't being developed or cultivated, right, in each generation. And secondly, the intellectual capital, so a lot of these, ultra wealthy families had some kind of family business, some kind of niche, right? Mm-hmm. And was that form of capital, that intellectual capital, was that being passed down? Right, so the next person could really manage and run the the business well, or it would end up going to an outsider or something like that. And then third, if you get the human and the intellectual right, it should yield financial capital, which then to keep the flywheel going needs to be reinvested into human capital.
For sure.
And it struck me reading through this is that if that's true for a family, that's true for an individual. It's true for a Fortune 500 company. It's true for a church. It's true for a government. It's true for any body of people, no matter how big or how small, right? Because it's all like a fractal, right? And so, what I love about what you guys are doing is you guys are actually really helping that exact model, that idea of these 3 basic forms of capital in any kind of body or organization, right? Be it to the individual, to whatever, Walmart. Yeah. You're helping that by cultivating the human capital and helping then that's feeding into how you develop the intellectual capital for that particular business, which then, God willing, and the creek don't rise, right? It should yield financial capital, which then will hopefully be reinvested back into the human capital, which will create that succession planning and hopefully the stability and really perpetuate the legacy for that business. I love it. That's right up my alley.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear.
You guys are pressing into that, which is awesome. We need more of that. We need more of that. So
yeah, I love it, and you're exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right.
It's awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
All right, man. So let's get into the juicy details. Not so much juicy, but I think it's good just to kind of look back and think in the tech world they call it a retrospective. But it's kind of fun just to look back and think on our own journey, our own story, our own experience. And we're obviously doing that here to hopefully help folks that are listening, all 7 billion people right now, right? And but for you, Andrew, as you've been looking back through your life iteration, if you will, what are some things that you've done right? So you've had success, you've seen increasing success, which is awesome. I'm sure you've had some failures along the way, which we'll get to. But as you look back, man, what are some things that you did right, decisions you made, choices you made, whatever it might be, that kind of naturally rise to the top of others? What comes to mind when you look back and think of your success and what you did right?
Yeah, for sure. Specifically with Proceed, something that I know that I did right, and it was from previous past failures that I finally woke up to it. But something that I think we did really correct is we started out with a prototype, and my rule with and again, this is through past failures, but with technology ventures, you always need to test your assumptions and de-risk your idea. And ideally, you would do this without coding anything or developing any, really, without basically developing a product, right? A lot of people, and I was guilty of this too a while back with other ventures, but you think I can't, I need this or I need that before I can, sell this product or before I can decide that it's a real business. But something we did really correct, or really well, I think, I shouldn't say correct, but really well with Proceed is that, I built a prototype without any code, was able to
You're referring to Snapchat, right?
Yeah, with the Snapchat model, and then even after that, we did a few things to test some further assumptions. But without writing any code, was able to determine people like this They like, certain things about it that don't exist today in another product. And maybe some things exist, but other things don't. We were able to de-risk the idea before writing a single line of specific code for Proceed.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I would recommend to anyone thinking about going into any kind of technology product, because it's saved me so much time and hassle. Because if I would have built what we have today without de-risking it, I would have spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and then potentially could have found, well, hey, actually, no one wants this.
Yeah, you could have built what you have today, but it wouldn't have been what you have today because of all the feedback that you've gotten.
Yeah, exactly.
Through that process.
Yeah,
and it's shaped what you've done today.
Yeah, we were able to prioritize certain things that we thought would have been really handy. Turns out no one cared about. We were able to de-risk a lot of the idea and the concept early on. So that is a recommendation I would make to anyone who's starting any kind of technology, especially software apps.
Yeah.
There's probably a way of building it without coding it or building it, they call it, man behind the curtain, right? With the Wizard of Oz, and that's basically what Proceed was. You use Snapchat, and then man behind the curtain was me downloading it every night and uploading it to a private WordPress site.
Yeah.